Here's a brief video on the mounting procedure for the Sidewinder tanks on the S7. It should be pretty much the same for almost any aircraft. Let's see here. Here's the large hose circle clamps. They are connected to the smaller circle clamps here. They're wrapped around the front lift strut like that. And then we have one here that secures it from sideways. So that bottom one stops the movement this way, and this side one stops the movement from this way. So it's very secure. On the back, well, we were able to do this because this is in vertical line. It's parallel with the running of the front circle clamp. On the back, when we have an angled jury strut to work with, you've seen we've just put another larger hose clamp, and there's no interference there. There's no sign of any wear or anything. And we have the primary one here that's locked into at the bottom of the rear lift strut right there. So the front and the back are similar, are basically the same for that. For the fuel line routing, we've gone with the regular brass nipple fitting, a piece of urethane to connect the two, and we have a 1/4 inch fuel line that comes from aircraft spruce. The 1/4 inch is adequate for this aircraft and supply line for the engine. We made it rather neat, tried to make it as neat as possible, blended it so it come along the edge of the leading edge of the trailing edge, and we straightened it out using a hammer and grip technique, and then taped it with some metallized tape. We tucked it under the bracket here, it fit just right, and then took it inside the fuselage right there. Now come around, in this aircraft we have our installation here, we draw off the tanks, directly draw off them as opposed to feeding them into the main tanks. Now I don't know if you can see the lighting here, it's rather poor, but there's a header tank. This header tank supplies the engine. There's valves here that we use to select. We can either turn the header tank on or off. You can't see with shit, but we can turn the header tank on and off. And I usually run off the Sidewinders first to get the weight, consume those tanks first, and then go on to the main tanks. The tank here, all fuel tanks are very difficult to monitor exactly how much are in them unless you have a really good visual clue. Even these ones can't really tell you. I thought the tanks were empty and there's still plenty of fuel in them because I couldn't see any fuel in the sight gauges here. But in this header tank there's a sensor, and that sensor has a float, and when the Sidewinders drain completely and they start to draw down the header tank, the float at the top of the tank will send a signal to this light right here in the dash. It's a very bright LED. If we turn the master on, we have a test switch to here, always confirm that that light is in operation. We check it as we're running off the Sidewinder tanks, aux tanks, to make sure that that light is not failing. And when that float goes down and that light illuminates, first it'll flicker as the float starts to draw off, and then it'll go steady. That will tell you that there's 3 liters left in the aux tank, which means that's time to then switch. There's plenty of warning to switch over then to your main tanks, and then there'll be nothing left in your aux tanks, will be dry. What you'll find though is as the plane is flying after that, you have this irritating blinking or light on, and there's no point shutting it off. If you put a switch on it, there's potential that you could forget the switch the next time and then the light doesn't work. So what I do here is I bleed a little fuel back into the header tank, just enough to shut this light off, and when it's off then I turn the bleed off and run off the main tanks, and that's it. It's a fairly simple system. That's just one way of doing it. Another way is, as I've described, is to pump the fuel directly into the main tanks up here. This one doesn't have sight gauges. This is a much older machine, but most do. But pumping through into the sight gauges is a really good way of delivering the fuel into the tanks to top them up. These fuel lines here are just simply tied in, both of them tied in to a Y at the top of the tank. the header tank. A very simple, quick installation. The whole thing didn't take much more than an hour and a half to install. Anyway, that's it. I hope you find this video helpful in your installation.